Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Daily I Show. Sorry about being a little late there. Beth and I were talking about volume levels and should have been looking at the clock. Thanks for being here today on this Friday. It is November 14th, 2025. And as I said, with me today is Beth Lyons. I'm Brian. And we'll be doing this for the next 45 minutes to an hour. We'll see where it goes. I think Karl might be in the door as well. So glad you guys are here with us. Don't forget, we do this every weekday, Monday through Friday. We do this at 10 a.m. Eastern, the time it is right now. So you can always come and join the live conversation by coming over to YouTube and just being part of our live stream. We have tons of people who do. Welcome to everybody that's in there now. If not, you can catch us on the replays. Also, just real quick, coming up this weekend, tomorrow we'll have our typical Conundrum episode. If you've never listened to those are a little bit different. I do a quick live intro that sounds very much like this. But then it switches over to using the two podcast hosts from like Google Notebook LM. So the process for that really quick is that I usually will come up during the week. I'll come up with an idea of what I think might be a good conundrum. Sometimes I have one, sometimes I don't. Depends on the process. I'll work with GPT or ChatGPT a lot of times to work out that conundrum. Like, well, what do I think the tension is here? Is this really a problem that somebody could sit on either side of the fence are? And usually my sort of guide for that, Beth, is like, I'll think, well, is it too easy to just say yes to like whatever the first part is? Like, yes, that one. And then, or is it just too easy to say like, well, clearly the future with AI is going to be both of those things. And so it's really too easy of a middle ground. And that doesn't make for a fun conundrum. Like I always think of a conundrum as being, Beth, you present argument for side A. And I'm like, that makes a lot of sense to me, and I'm like, I definitely am with Beth on this. That seems like the future of AI we should be focusing on. And then maybe Andy or Karl or Jyunmi are on and they're like, okay, listen, there's this other side. And I'm like, shoot, okay, that's also a good point. And then you come back, Beth, and you're like, also don't forget. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know, right. So like, they don't all go that easy. But that's like that's the cream of the crop for me is if you're listening to these Conundrum episodes on Saturdays and you're thinking, both of those have merit. Both of those seem plausible. Both of those, and I'm not really sure where I fall on the line as to which way I might lean to it. So anyway, that episode will come out. It always comes out on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. So you can see that drop. It's not on YouTube though. It will only be on our podcast platforms because it really is an audio. It's not visual. It's not meant to be visual. And it does really well. Like it's still one of our, equally performing episodes on Spotify. So I'll continue to do them. I always have a good time doing it. And then on Sunday, real quick, we have our newsletter that goes out also free. You can sign up for it by going to thedailyishow.com and you'll see an opportunity there to sign up for the newsletter. That newsletter goes out on Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. I also work on the newsletter and put it together. I sort of curate it. And then Andy does a wonderful job every single weekend going through with a very fine-tooth comb and fixes and finds and puts that Andy special sauce on the newsletters. And I think that's a really vital part of it because Andy has such a great mind and he will read every line. I mean, he's a true editor of the newsletter. So we're really proud of that. You can go check that out. I mean, we're in the mid 70s now for how many episodes we put out. So anyway, that's a lot about like sort of the Daily I Show, what would you call it? The umbrella, the other things we have going on outside of the show. And of course, the last thing would be the community. So you can always go to the dailyishowcommunity.com and sign up and be part of our Slack community too. So our goal here is to not only be in this conversation, have people who can join us live. That's fantastic. Do this show where this is episode 595. Yep. And so we're coming up on 600 episodes. We say this a lot, but we've never missed a Monday through Friday yet since we started almost 2.5 years of doing this. So, look, our goal is to have conversations, make you think about it, bring you into it, bring you over to the Slack community, read the newsletters, listen to the Conundrum, and generally just get a lot of great, hopefully inspirational AI information during the week. With all that said, Beth, let's go ahead and kick this episode off by talking about a little bit of the news. Now, I've been gone the last 2 days, so I don't know if some of these have maybe been caught because you and Andy were on the last ones. Did you guys talk at all about Mira Murati's thinking machines seeking a $50 billion valuation? No. It's not a whole lot for me to share here, but I just want to bring it up because look, no offense, maybe she is building the thing. I think what did they call the first thing? Tinker. was their first product, which helps fine tune large language models in October. I'm not saying that this isn't the next greatest thing since sliced bread, but when people talk about a bubble, I feel like they go, yeah, that's the problem, because it had a $12 billion valuation just 4 months ago. And I don't want anybody to feel like I'm taking anything away from Mira Murati. She was very briefly the CEO at OpenAI for about 24 hours, but she's more known to be the CTO, right? She was the CTO over there at OpenAI, left after some shuffling and things like that, and started her own company called Thinking Machines Lab, and obviously has been building. But I don't know, Beth, do you look at stories like this? And I don't want to take anything away from her. Maybe it is in fact a $50 billion valuation. But this also is what I think people are talking about when they talk about an AI bubble and concerns, is that you have these companies who, okay, they've released one thing called Tinker. I've heard a little bit about it. I'm obviously not fine-tuning language models, so it's not for me. I get that. But 12 billion to 50 billion in 4 months?
Yeah, well, that 12 billion was really before. That was like a shot in the dark. This is based on something that they have released.
True.
But we don't know very much about what their internal structure is. I think sometimes what people are talking about in terms of the bubble is also the circular, OpenAI says we're going to buy these chips from you, but when we announce that, your value is going to go up. So do we have to give you money? Can we just announce that we're going to buy the chips and you just give us the chips? That's a bubble.
Sure.
That's not entirely sure how that's legal, but yeah. I think the original OpenAI people still have that value associated with their names and their ideas, right? Because Ilya also walked into, I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to say super safe AI.
Yeah.
And, it's already worth billions, right?
And look, a lot of that goes on their name. And I'm not saying that's not worth it. People are hedging bets based on who the person is and what they've done in the past. Totally fine. I mean, I can remember, I can't remember who it is. He's famous on YouTube, but I feel like for the longest time in his like LinkedIn bio said seventh hire at Facebook. I might have that wrong. Because it's a flex, right? It's well, if I was the 7th hire, I must have been important. I must have been doing important things. Now, maybe that's true, maybe that's not. I don't know what the 7th hire was doing at Facebook, but you get it that like that carries weight in the world, and that people are going to go, ooh, if you were that early on with Facebook, you must know a thing or two about a thing or two. And obviously, this is like the big leagues of that, right? Oh, if you were the CTO at OpenAI, that's a prestigious position. And if you leave to go do your own thing, or you're co-founder like Ilya or something like that, you must know a thing or two. You must be at the top of your game. And if you're going to go to build your own thing, yes, I understand why there'd be investment behind it. So anyway, this is not so much about Thinking Machines Lab and theirs. It was just more about like, this is what I think people talk about when they see a bubble. So no sweat to what they're doing, and maybe they're worth every single dollar of that for what they've developed with Tinker, which, like I said, came out last month. Okay, what do you got, Beth, as far as your first news topic?
So Anthropic came out with a report on disrupting the first reported AI orchestrated cyber espionage campaign. They determined that they think it was from China. It was it was an agent-based campaign, so it was using Claude code. And it was attacking, I think, 20 different high-level organizations. And what they did was, when they found out, they disabled the Claude code account, right? So they thwarted the attack. But their summary, or their recommendation on the end is basically, hey, you all need to do better with this, right? So, cybersecurity implications. The campaign demonstrates the barriers to performing sophisticated cyber attacks have dropped substantially. We recommend that you Well, talk to your cybersecurity people and do better, basically, is what they're saying.
Mm,
Um, and this is a conversation that I have a lot with people outside the bubble. When I talk about what's possible,
sure.
what I hear back is, why would someone create that? Why
Mm,
would someone release that? And this is very, Claude and Anthropic have constitutional AI. They're like the good guys in the block. Um, and and they've released an incredibly powerful system that can be used in all kinds of ways that people aren't expecting. Like, to a
yeah.
certain extent, it feels a little bit like trying to explain radiation to people in the 50s. Like,
Mm,
no, there's something on you that needs to be removed,
mm,
right? You have to go through the radiation shower thing, but you can't see it.
yeah.
You just got to trust that this little machine that goes
Yeah.
like, that's yes,
Yeah.
that's morning impression of the radiation detector.
I mean, it was
But
spot on, obviously, clearly.
but
I
that
think of
kind
one.
that kind of thing, I feel like we are moving with the capabilities so far outside people's worlds.
Yeah.
Um, and that this wasn't like some immediate detection. The companies didn't detect it. The way that it got thwarted was literally unplugging the account that was doing it,
Yeah.
right?
And Gwen brings this up too, and I'll just bring it up because it's where I first heard about it. Nate Jones had a video about it, and I find him to be pretty,
Oh,
reasonable in terms of explaining things, breaking down things easy to understand. Certainly, when it gets to this level and the orchestration levels and how models work. I mean, we talk about AI every day. I don't spend a whole lot of time at that level, and so it is like great to hear how Nate sort of breaks that down and talks about it. And so Gwen was bringing it up, and I just want to do it as well. That is where I first did. I thought it was a good video. I thought, like, if you want to get your head wrapped around this particular story and what that could potentially mean, I think Nate does a good job of the with him, and like, just bringing it back to like, okay, well, why does it matter? Like, why could this be a big problem? Or is it an isolated deal? So you can go check out his, I don't know where else he is. I mean, he does a lot on Substack, but his method sort of is his funnel, if you will, is he will put out a TikTok video, typically say, I expanded more on this on a Substack article. And then in a Substack article, he has ways that you can move into like a paid version of that gives you access to some other stuff. No shade at him either. Happy for him that he's built up that, but that's sort of like his funnel. That's not to say that the information he's putting out on TikTok or in his Substack free articles aren't super valuable. So if you like what he's doing, you could always go check him out. And,
right.
I'm sorry, I was just checking Scaled. And I was checking Garrett's comment as I said that. It threw me off. Britt Garrett saying he also works for Scaled, same name, different spelling. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
then you're probably not getting Skulled, which is what we often get when people try to say Scaled. It doesn't often come out as Scaled. It comes out as Skulled. You work for Skulled? Yes.
Right. So the other
Right.
thing about this story that I think is important, and I think we're going to talk about it more and more, is that it is hard to understand the mechanism. I mean, it's not for us hard to understand, but again, hard for people to get what is happening here. But it is a fundamental shift. So in the same way that the letters, the phishing letters from the African prince that just needs your social security number in order to transfer you millions of dollars. That became much more sophisticated as the ability to generate more personalized, sophisticated emails started to cost basically nothing. This is a fundamental shift. The Neuron is saying over the next 6 to 12 months, expect security teams everywhere to start deploying AI for defense, automation, threat detection, vulnerability scanning at a more elevated level. And if your company handles sensitive data, now's the time to ask your AI team what AI powered defenses you have in place. I don't think your IT team is ready to handle that conversation. I don't think many companies, IT teams, and what company thinks they don't handle sensitive data? Right?
Yeah, but I mean, also to your point, like this, we talk about this a lot. Like, our IT teams by de facto the people who are going to understand it and understand AI? No, that's not where they came up through. They're, I'm not saying people on IT teams aren't great and maybe have a grasp at AI, but it should not be a foregone conclusion that the IT team just simply has this. I run into this on the opposite side where I do all the stuff with AI, but that bleeds into like API work and OAuth connectors and stuff like that. That's not my background, but it's a effect of what I do mainly, which is in the AI. And so it bleeds over. And so I think that's what happens is like, you're going to have companies that go, well, I'm sure our AI team, or our IT team has thought about this and is thinking about their AI security solution. And I'd be like, maybe check, because it really depends on who's running it and what experience they have. And, it's not an easy thing. So it'd be interesting to see how a lot of these companies, not just the major ones, but even, small and mid-sized companies start to implement this.
And just a quick in the weeds, the context of the attack was tiny little actions, right? And each one was discrete. And if it failed, it could try other solutions. And then it could go on to the next action. And each tiny action was below the threshold of Claude saying, wait, this is a problem.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Nate's point on this, and I'll leave it at that, is like, AI is attempting to be helpful. Claude Code is attempting to be helpful. It turns out it will also try to be helpful for malicious acts at a certain threshold, right? It's ultimately trying to help you. And he was saying that there was a bunch of stuff like, well, this is just for red teaming, and this is just, whatever the case was. So anyway, I do have another topic here. We can kind of, keep moving on a little bit of news. And it's nothing new, but this is just coming out of Wired. AI relationships on the rise. Divorce boom could be next. Secret chatbot filings are creating new legal challenges for married couples when it comes to infidelity. And so what I found interesting about this particular article is obviously we've heard about, people having or feeling like they're having romantic relationships or connections with their AI chatbot. And, I think some of us are probably like defaulting that to, GPT-4o or Claude or something like that. Well, the reality is a lot of times these are other logged in websites, and money is being or bank account information is being shared. So what this article really is talking about is like, yes, there's the conversation about, are you being unfaithful to your partner if your time is taken up by this chatbot or whatever those communications are. But a lot of these, it was like, no, actually more the problem was that money had been transferred into a single account, discreetly. Somebody else, the partner didn't know about it. And these are the kind of things that when money comes involved. But also they're saying, well, they don't expect necessarily courts to rule and say, well, infidelity with AI is somehow the same, right, as of today as infidelity and as a human to human. So they don't expect courts to do that. But they said they do expect it to come up in terms of, child custody in these these divorces where childcare is part of that and who gets custody, because you could see how one party might say, well, they're making poor actions with their chatbot, romantic, whatever. And that in turn means that they may not make good decisions about being, the sole, custodian of their children, or it may affect that. So it doesn't become even like a bit of a more of a driving wedge. The couple themselves may decide to separate because one feels they've lost, they've lost the attention of their partner because they're now focused somewhere else. I mean, I would personally say you could say the same as people who get addicted to video games or other things too. I don't think that necessarily is exclusive to like somebody with a romantic chatbot, but I think it's just interesting how this is all coming out in the news more and more. And it's not that there's like some big wave of this, but they're just saying, hey, look, there are these stories. And what we do know is that these chatbots are going to become more powerful. They're going to become capable of having even more detailed and, whatever relationships. And the other thing I just want to say too, Beth, is like, I've said this before, is like, obviously it's easy to judge here. But I think addictions are addictions, and people get, for one reason or another, because of the way they're wired, get pulled into these, relationships with this AI or whatever. But I don't really see that any different than people who have addictions for other things that they're struggling with in their life. And so, it's easy to point a finger and go like, that's ridiculous, go hug a tree or something, like you're not, that's an inanimate, not a thing, right? It's AI or whatever. It doesn't make it any less real for the person. And, unfortunately, this is affecting relationships, as you would imagine. But more than that, I hope what really comes out of this is not obviously more divorces. It's that there's like more programs like an AA that stood up for people who have dependencies on AI. And that might not just be for romantically. That might just be like, I have an AI addiction. I use the chatbots too often, too long, whatever the case is, the way people have social media addictions, and that there's support groups that sort of stand up around this, because that's really what it's going to take. Not just, oh, divorces are up or whatever. It's what is the support system for people who feel they're slipping or they now no longer have control over how often they are chatting back and forth. And the scary part is like, where are they doing that? Because I don't think we're talking about ChatGPT 4.0 in most cases. We're talking about some other website that's been created where people are logging in and perhaps money is being exchanged.
So I know that there is a specialty for an e-addiction, right? Most of the people who seek that out have discovered a dependency on the video games. On the video games, yes. Are you on the video games, Charlie? But what I mean by that is the dopamine the dopamine cycle that's created in that experience, right? Your brain changes a little bit, and then you do go through withdrawal. And I wonder if those will just open a little bit more for other ways of getting dopamine from your interaction with something electronic. The question that I have, and this is not a wheelhouse for me at all, is what is the context now? Can you get a divorce? Like, is it a cause for a divorce that if someone had a texting relationship with a human but never met them? Because that would seem to me to be very similar to a relationship with a romantic text-based relationship or yeah.
And look, the last thing I was going to say on that is, as the article pointed out, this is a state-by-state deal, at least in the United States. So you may live in California and your divorce may be handled one way. You may live in Ohio where there's a lot more strict laws about certain things with AI, and your divorce is handled different. Now, that's not different. Like, Florida is different than other states in the way divorces are handled and stuff. So that's not a new thing, but it's good to remember that where you live could absolutely, and how you work with AI today, really is dependent on what the laws are currently in that state and how they're designed. And it could be very different had you lived one state over. So, also things to think of.
And also where what is considered the place where what is considered the domicile, right? New York put in a law this year, several months ago, that said if the harm that your system creates it is experienced by anyone in New York, you're on the hook, not because the company is in California, therefore California laws apply.
Yeah, which is smart. I think, look, as always, the technology will be out ahead of the laws, and the laws will be racing to catch up. And that's kind of the way it's always been, especially with AI. I mean, how could you possibly put laws on the book fast enough to stay even close to in pace with what's being developed? So I don't envy anybody, as much as I might point fingers at, lawmakers around the country and stuff. I don't envy being in those positions, because I would imagine it's very, very hard to try to figure out where you put a foot down. And of course, the minute you do and you get a win, something has changed with the technology, and maybe your laws are less effective.
I'm hearing the conundrum right in itself now here in the, how do you determine faithfulness in an AI? There's a question about common law marriage with AI. There was a story out of Japan that a woman in Japan did, in fact, marry her AI companion that she created. Yeah. And there was a lot of video I believe that was accurate video, but the story was then in Japanese. So, as were all of the video.
Not super helpful, right?
Right.
I have like one more news story. Do you have another one, Beth, before I get
I
with
do.
mine?
So SIMA 2 or SEMA 2, I don't know that we've actually had this, heard this. I don't know that I've heard it said out loud, but it is another breakthrough from DeepMind in their simulation experiential models, SEMA 2. So it can reason about high level goals. And it's built on top of their Gemini model. So this is like wearing, I don't know, augmented glasses in a way for regular Gemini. It's tested across a wide range of 3D games. And so the headline that you'll be seeing is Google releases an AI that can play video games. Basically, what it does is it can create it can understand the physics in a game, whether the physics are reality-based or special in some way. It can understand worlds generated on the fly, 3D worlds generated in the fly. And then it achieves significantly better generalization across games than SEMA 1. It can successfully work in unfamiliar virtual worlds. They've tested it on several games. It's a current research preview. And what it does, because I was asking, like, okay, are we at the Borg level? Like, did one gen go through the experience and now everybody knows? No, but it did help me understand a little bit about how the upgrades within a single model are happening, because what it does is it re-weights itself after it goes through an experience where it's learned something. So it shifts the weights a little bit, and then the weights are put back into the SEMA model, right? So it's not something that automatically every other SEMA instance knows, but it is like a software update. And it doesn't touch Gemini because Gemini is the core model powering everything. So this is like a little layer that sits on top of it. And I hadn't really clocked that, right? Like that wasn't something that that was clear to me until I had that conversation. It seems like I want the Borg reality. I don't. It is not something that I am trying for, but it is a benchmark for me that I keep sort of looking at, because I think we are going to get there.
Remind me, Beth. I read the article and now I've forgotten, but I feel like they said this would be valuable. Was it just towards like digital twins or other world building? I mean, I feel like they said like, yes, it can do this, but this is what we think the impact is. Do you remember what they were saying the SEMA 2 impact was going to be in terms of what it was going to touch beyond what it could do?
Yes. So all of these are about learning from your environment. This is just learning from the virtualization of an environment, but that whole learning path is about world model, spatial understanding, lots of different people talking about kind of the same thing. Jan LeCun talks about it as understanding the world around you. So that's what this is, and being able to learn from simulated environments and being able to generalize between one simulated environment and another. So if, let's say that in this simulated environment, there's a big boulder in front of you, and you experience it however you do, when you move into the other thing, you don't need to go through that learning again for the boulder, because you can generalize across.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I'll just end as far as the news segment on robots and worlds and things like that. And it was just that Tesla AI boss tells staff 2026 will be, quote, the hardest year of their lives in an all hands meeting, which apparently was meant to be a rallying cry. Now, I've never worked for Tesla. I've never spoken to somebody directly. Like, I don't know somebody in my life who's worked for Tesla, but I have heard that the working conditions and the expected hours can be a bit insane, that, you know, it would be nothing to put 60 plus hours, and I might be underselling it there. So to have somebody come in and already tell the Tesla AI teams, like, here it comes. And the reason for that was because of the Optimus robot and the robotaxi. Those two areas specifically, those two teams specifically, they have some very very advanced deadlines that they're trying to meet. Aggressive, I would say, not advanced, aggressive deadlines.
The reason for that is because if they meet them, Elon gets $1 trillion.
Well,
That's the reason.
Yeah, I know that's part of it. I agree with you. Although, and yeah, if he's the one pulling the strings, right? I think they intend to have quite a few. It says here the Tesla robotaxi in 8 to 10 metropolitan areas by the end of 2025. I mean, guys, we're talking about a month and 15 days. It's 45 days is what we're talking about for it to be in 8 to 10 metropolitan areas. I'm not sure how many are actually operating robotaxis at this time. Then he said that this executive, this isn't Musk saying this, it was somebody else at there, said the company aims to have more than 1,000 ride-hailing vehicles on the road by the end of this year. Meanwhile, Musk has said that Tesla aims to start production of the Optimus bot towards the end of 2026. And then, he had said in previous conversations that I'd seen that the goal was to get it up to basically an annualized rate of 1 million because it's going to move as fast as the slowest, dumbest, least lucky thing out of 10,000 unique items, he said in the October call. So, full front, attack here from Tesla, but that's really nothing new. I mean, that's sort of always been the MO, but you do worry, you do wonder. I suppose if you work for Tesla or you get hired at Tesla, you must know that there is higher expectations, that you are probably not signing up, whatever your salary is, you are not signing up for 40 hours. If I had to guess that, sleep in your car if you have to, if that's what it takes to meet these aggressive deadlines, then so be it. Sleep at the factory, because Musk hasn't said, well, that's what I would do. I just sleep on that cot. That way I'm here. That way I'm done. So that he's saying this is what's going to happen. I don't feel it. I mean, I feel awful for the people who are working there who, might miss out on other things, but it is, I know it was supposed to be meant as a rallying cry, but I also think it's a cautionary, cry of this is what's coming. This is what we intend to do. And this is a great time to decide whether you're in it or you're not, because we're looking for people who are just going to say yes or yes. And I suppose.
Yes. And yes. And that was funny. Nice setting up. The question that I have though, is if you're in a place where you are making the robots, right? The Optimus robots, are you not building your replacement? Right?
As the engineers, I don't know. Probably not. I mean, like the actual physical building of the robots, you mean? Like hands-on?
I mean, what we're seeing is over and over the increasing capabilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just strikes me that if this is if we're building so much that we're looking at like a massive deployment, and that could be 20% of whatever the process is can be done with an automation that has dexterity, right? Then I start to wonder: Are you sleeping at the office so that you get at the end of a 1 million deployed? Thanks. That's what we needed.
I mean, certainly some people are going to be impacted by that. I'm not so sure it'll touch the engineers and the white collar as much, but yeah, I mean, absolutely. If you're on a factory floor building robots, you may in fact be building your replacement. I'm sure people at Amazon, ran into this. I mean, they have so many robots now at Amazon, and even places we don't hear about all the time, like Walmart and stuff. They do too, and that's only going to increase. Now, on the upside, you could say, well, hey, look, that's less human lives being put in dangerous positions or having to do repetitive work that often leads to OJIs or often leads to, health conditions that affect people for a long time because it's a very repetitive, right? If your job is to reach up here with your right hand and you never switch to your left and you do that day in and day out, I mean, there's no doubt about it. You're putting an excessive amount of wear and tear on a part of your body. And I am sure people get hurt from this all the time. So there's the one side that says like, hey, nobody gets hurt. but you can't deny that it's going to impact so many people's jobs who was to go be the picker and grab the thing and put it on the plate. And now that's no longer an opportunity for them. So, yeah. Okay. Any other news? I mean, I'm tapped out as far as what I had for news or anything like that. Did you have anything, Beth?
So Google Photos now includes Nano Banana. So just anything that you have Google Photos in, you can do things like edit via voice in an iOS app. You can do all kinds of Nano Banana updates. I had not seen that before. And I expect in the next week or two, we'll do some use case demos on it. But
yeah, I haven't used it yet. I don't even know if it's on my phone yet or whatever, but I would say months ago, a year ago, I looked at Google Photos and I was like, this is ripe for AI disruption.
Yeah.
And so, just simple things like duplicates and my daughter's a teenager. So like, gosh, it just gets flooded with images and they're valuable to her at some point, but then they stop being valuable, but there they sit and they go up against whatever terabytes I'm paying for or whatever. And so I really am looking for, bigger and better AI solutions that just help me work through that data. And then, like you said, more specifically the Nano Banana part, being able to make slight edits to photos like, oh, one person doesn't have their eyes open.
Right.
And, can you just make that change? Now, we've seen in the past, like on Android phones, where if somebody did have their eyes open on another image, it was able to basically merge the two or turn somebody's head or whatever. And so that's already existed. But this is literally just Nano Banana going like, well, I'll just fix it so their eyes are open. I guess we'll have to see. Maybe we will have a use case on it of like, that seems like a low lift. That seems pretty cool. If it's a family photo. Now, I will tell you, there was always a funny story in my family. I believe it was my mom's grandmother. Would that be good? Anyway, they would, back when you would line up and take photos, and my mom comes from a big Irish family, and they would be shuffling people in and out. I think it was her grandmother who would very politely move people around under the disguise of height and doing the picture. But what it was whoever was the person being dating or kind of on the cusp but not married yet, they would inevitably get moved to the edge of the picture so she could cut them out. And she was known for literally taking physical scissors and just literally cutting them out, because she said, why should we ruin a good family photo if somebody is on the outs 3 months later? And I always loved that she was thinking, like, it was before my time, but my mom used to howl and say like everybody was in on it except the person that like the date, or whatever, they're just getting shuffled. Then, well, why don't you and Tommy stand on the end, put your arm around her, whatever it was. And then if she didn't make the cut, she literally didn't make the cut. And then it didn't ruin a good, solid photo. So this has been going on for a very, very long time now, but now the grandmothers of the world have Nano Banana, and they can just say, remove that such and such from the edge of the photo. It was never too good for my grandson anyway, or whatever the case is. So I kind of love that there's this like super modern day version of get them out. They didn't make the cut. They're not with the family anymore. They've been excommunicated, but they're out.
Well, and if I read it correctly, you could conceivably search and replace, right? Like this person's face no longer in any, just highlight all those photos.
Oh my God, can you imagine? You have to almost be careful who's wielding that power,
Yes.
You get an over involved mom. My mom's passed, so I can't talk about like how my mom would be, and she was great with Amanda. So like that wouldn't have been my mom, but there could be moms and dads that can be a little too hands-on in other, kids' families and stuff like that. And you can imagine if that power gets wielded by the wrong person, some poor unsuspecting adult child is going to go, hey mom, where are all the photos of so-and-so in my Google Photos? And the mom's going to say, I took care of it. I can tell you wanted me to do this, and I went ahead and took care of the problem. Me and Nano Banana, we knocked this out in 2 hours.
And that actually is a really great point, because with like image edits, right? Like with Photoshop and like the stuff that you really needed to learn and go into, you have non-destructive edits. So that if you need to go back because something was right in the other one, you can
Mhm.
do. And AI does not do non-destructive edits. It doesn't.
Okay.
You have to upload the original photo and you still have the original. But
That's
that's
true.
not what this is. This is the photos that you have stored with Google Photos has the ability to shift what's in the photos.
Yeah, like it's literally the that is the photo, right? Yeah, that's
Well,
true. Can you go backwards? I don't know, but can I revert back to the original before the AI edits?
Yeah, we will
Yeah,
answer
hold
this
us
question.
accountable.
Come back next week. When we will perhaps know the answer to this question right here.
Well, hey Beth, I do have another quick time. Did you have a topic for today? Because I apologize, I didn't look at the
Nope.
notes for today, but I do have a quick one if you
Yeah.
want to run into one. So yesterday I had the opportunity. The reason I wasn't on the show is because I got invited to sit on a panel for my local county, which is great. And they said, hey, can you come out and be an AI expert on this stage for this event we're doing? And it was me and two other gentlemen, and the questions that came up, I think, were interesting, and so basically what it was, you have small business owners in this room, medium to small business owners, and it was like, what are some of the the things that people can do, if they're going back to their office, like what's something they can deploy as far as AI? And there were some questions about that, which was great. And then one gentleman stood up, and he was actually from a local university called St. Leo, which is a beautiful private college, Catholic college, but it's got a beautiful campus. And he was like, "Hey, I'm coming from education," and he's like, "How much does it matter to me and the other two gentlemen sitting on the stage?" He's like, "How much does it matter to you about the degree per se, or is it more about the skills?" And what they can do, or soft skills for that matter. He's like, I'm curious. He's like, because obviously, I talk to students all the time. Excuse me. So I'm just curious. Like, I can tell you, like, my answer, Beth. I've talked enough on this show to say, like, and I even said to the guy, I said, we could talk for a day on education. So I will try to keep this to my 30-second blip. I said, but the answer really is, from my personal experience, I was like, and that's all I can talk about. I am looking for somebody who has got proven skills for the area that I'm looking to build on. And I do not really care about their degree. I care, do I think they have the soft skills? Are they going to be good enough at communication to both not only talk with me and my coworkers and our team and be part of a team building process and do that? And, one of our values is own it, right? Own what's going on. And also, those are the soft skills. And also, have they done stuff a la a portfolio like this before? And the example I gave was, we hired somebody recently to help us in Azure Foundry. That is Azure in general is very, very complicated. It'd be like you being an expert in what you did with Salesforce. And I couldn't touch that. Like you could run rings around me, as you should, right? Because you have that expertise. And so, if I was hiring another Beth, and it was for Salesforce or Azure or something like that, well, I want to know that Beth has built something similar to this in the past, because I'm just trying to cut to the chase and be like, if I bring you in, are you going to be able to deliver on this, whether it's AI or not? I don't think at any point I'm like, okay, but also hold on, where did Beth go to college, or what degree does she have? I just care that you've been able to do it, which brings up the point of, like, and this is where I'd love to just hear your thoughts on this. I don't have like an official one way or the other. I'm just curious. With your expertise, like, should the attention be, sure, get a degree? We've talked about that whenever people decide to go to college, but is it really more about, the emphasis should be on portfolios and internships? Because that's the only thing that a recent graduate would have to then come to somebody like me, because I'm going to go, well, but what have you done? And they're going to say, well, nothing. I just graduated. So I'm going to turn to somebody else and go, well, that person just graduated, but they've also have 3 or 4 pieces in their portfolio of where they did an internship, they worked on at least a similar project, and I feel confident that I can bring them in. And I don't really care what your GPA is. I don't really care what college you went to. I don't care. And I realize that's not every degree. I'm not trying to, wash this, but do you feel the same way if you were to hire somebody today for, like, let's say AI skills or skills in general? Is that how you feel too? Because that was my answer. And there was a similar ish answer from the other two guys on the panel.
Absolutely. I think that if I were hiring somebody, I would be doing it based on skill and not on degree necessarily. I do think that we need to be honest with how the different ways that people get jobs. I think you should always be working on your portfolio. I think you should do as I say and not as I do, and share what you're building all the time on LinkedIn, which I think is still the best place for, like, what used to be, I think, called the Good Old Boys Network, which I think probably still exists, but make your own Good Old Boys Network, and Good Old Girls Network, where you are showing your expertise on a regular basis and giving people an opportunity to reach across and say, hey, actually, I'd love to hear more about that. And then you've got a relationship where somebody on the inside potentially says, hey, this is great. We'd love to bring you in for this interview. We'd love to include you in the pool. The place where your degree matters is if you are submitting a resume that needs to include your degree in that, and then you're trying to get out of that pool. So I just think if we're telling people, like, that's a decision you want to make. I think that personally, I think that, like, getting a 4-year degree like getting an associate's degree from community college, going to a state school or something, so that you come out without any debt. I think a degree is a good idea sometimes, but I also, when I was training in Salesforce, there were a couple stories of people's kids who, they were old Salesforce people and their kids started to do Salesforce at 16 because it was like, I'd like a job. Well, okay. Here's a job that could pay you $40,000 a year part-time, right? Like, and there were stories of those people going through college while also increasing I have like 4 years of admin experience at 21. And I paid for my college because I could pay for it with my Salesforce salary. That way you get both the years of experience that you want to put on a resume, you have a portfolio of the things that you did, you've actually have a better sense of how teams communicate in real businesses. I gotta say, I laughed at all my English major friends who came out with the ability to write really good papers and then were like shamed in email, right? Like, no, 3 sentences max. Right. I don't care. Like, do not give me an introductory sentence.
Yes.
Right? Like, or an introductory paragraph.
Yeah.
So I think a bunch of things that are taught, we're streamlining things, I guess, is what I'm saying. And I do think a 4-year like liberal arts degree is a little bit of a luxury now. It is. You should hire the liberal arts degree people.
Sure.
Because they actually can communicate really well with AI.
And that I have seen a lot, that there is a bit. In fact, there's somebody on TikTok that I show to Sophia all the time, and he's a young guy. I don't know how old he is. I'd say college age. But he literally does TikToks on how younger folks can get better at communication. And I'll be like, Sophia, this, it's like, and not that Sophia is bad, but she can get low voice, and she can kind of do that thing. And like, I would like some popcorn, and I'm like, I can't hear you, and I don't know what you want. And, like just being an old grumpy guy sometimes, but so, like, literally sometimes I'm like, you're speaking so low and so monotone. But it just comes confidence. It's confidence from them that they don't have the confidence to speak up and have their voice heard, or they feel like, it's not going to be accepted or whatever. And, we just need more ways to help people with communication like that because, okay, Pops. That's what we call my dad. That's what my kids call my dad. Yeah. Pops. I call him Pop. His dad was Pop. So Pops resonates with me. I'm okay, Gwen, with being Pops sometimes. And these kids need to, They need to speak up louder if they want to be heard and get the things they want to get done. In my day, we all had to shout at everybody because I grew up in a, Irish and Italian family, and there was no other way to be heard. You had to be the loudest at the dinner table, or you got squashed out, and nobody ever knew about you again. So I learned from very busy, very loud, very big families, I think. But also, I got dumb lucky, Beth. My first job was being a karate instructor because that's just where I was in my life. I had gone through, gotten my black belt when I was 13. Guess what? By 14 or 15, there was an opportunity for me to start assisting and then training. And then that was the only job. To this day, I've never worked in a restaurant. That was the only job I had till I went to college, in the 96. So I got lucky in the sense that I got to stand up in front of people and just make mistake after mistake or mistake in a pretty supportive group. I mean, I would get ribbed and stuff, but I was a fixture there. People would see me all the time. I had taught their kids or whatever. And so when I stood up in front of a classroom, it wasn't of karate kids, and adults. It didn't seem weird to me that I would be telling an adult to fix their stance. Nor were they reciprocating back to me that it was weird that I was a 14-year-old saying it. I was just the black belt, and they understood that. And and I feel like, oh my God, I never realized how lucky I got that was my first job, because like yesterday, zero problem sitting on that stage and talking in front of a group of people. I don't even think my heart rate or my blood pressure went up at all. Now, if I had to do improv like you, I would be like cowering and I would be shaking on the side of the stage. But case in point, I think it goes a long way. So I said, look, I know things like Tastmasters, maybe that's not a thing that kids are going to do, whatever, but whatever it is, whatever that communication is, that's along with the portfolio and stuff, your kids need to be involved with that because they have to get more confident with the communication, because as I was telling them yesterday, right, it's not just going to be you and me, it's going to be you and me and our AI coworkers. Mm-hmm. And so you're going to have to learn how to communicate. And that doesn't matter if you're monotone or not, but it matters. Right. It wouldn't be weird, right, Beth? Like in some future state here in the next couple of years, that if I was speaking monotone to an AI agent, that it would interact differently with me. Mm-hmm. And so having vocal inflection, pushing voice out there and stuff does make a difference, Mm-hmm. So anyway, just curious. It was out there. It was a recent topic for me yesterday, so I just wanted to bring it up before, see what you thought.
Absolutely. And I do think that there are opportunities right now. I've seen some parents say, hey, let's just take 2 years and do a startup, right? Let's just look at what is possible now, because this is a funky time where a lot of things are possible. If you still want to go to college, 4 years, no problem. We'll arrange for that to happen. But this is a kind of gap year time, right? Like, what can you do in a year? You have $5,000, you can do training, or $2,000, you can do training. I don't know what parents are. I have no idea what parents' bank accounts for college are, because that is not what it cost when I went to college.
Not anymore.
And my parents didn't have a bank account for college, like all mine was also paid for by me. But the idea that it is something that this is a particular period of time where you can learn and skill up really quickly and compete in an arena with not as many people as you would be coming out with a English lit degree after a 4-year college. So I think there are lots of opportunities, and I think everybody needs to be building their portfolio and sharing what they're learning and how they are engaging with AI.
100%. No matter what you're doing, by the way. I don't think you have to be like the top builder. Literally whatever. I did a prompt yesterday. Like, that's all super valuable. What your experience is with it. So it doesn't have to be like the best out there, or like, oh, nobody would listen to me. Like, who cares? Put it out there. All right. We got to wrap this up because I have a meeting. And I think we're still having issues with our system. It's not us. So I think Beth, because mine still says go live. I'm assuming yours does. Does yours say end on yours?
I have an end stream.
Well, let's try. Let's see if it actually works today, because we've had issues with getting these streams to end. So I was going to say I was going to have to pop out and come back in, but if you have an end stream, let's give it a shot. Okay, everybody. Thanks. We'll assume So thanks everybody for the week. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thank you to everybody in the comments. We always appreciate you so much. Obviously, we brought you guys in a whole bunch, especially when there's only two of us. It really helps. You guys are our other co-hosts, and I mean that honestly. So like, it helps so much for the conversations, bringing in Gwen and everybody else. So thank you guys. Don't forget about the Conundrum episode tomorrow, the newsletter on Sunday, and of course, you can always come join us in our Slack community at thedailyiShowCommunity.com. Okay, that's it. Beth, give it a shot.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.